Shalom from Israel. I'm Ariel Ben Amram. This week we're going to reflect from chapter 20 of the book of Psalms by King David. It's a very short chapter, only has 4 verses, but it's one of the most amazing and probably the sweetest prayer that we can read from the book of Psalms. It's a beautiful prayer that we are going to reflect on and try to get the different dimensions, as many as possible dimensions that we may assimilate, grasp from this beautiful prayer. Verse 1 says, "May the Lord answer you when you are in distress. May the name of the God of Jacob protect you." It's like David basically is proclaiming many truths here. And again, the most fundamental of them is that God is our Father, is our Creator. Therefore, we have to rely on Him. We have no choice, by the way. We depend completely on God. Therefore, we have to trust Him. But again, we have to understand God. We have to repeat this over and over again. Not as an alien being, not even abstract, but as the goodness from whom we come. It's very important, because this is how God helps us. When we start adopting goodness in every level of consciousness, in what we think, what we feel, what we say, and what we do. So David is asking, he's telling us to trust God. God answers you. So may the Lord answer you when you are in distress. So why not when we are not in distress? But basically, because we may not need Him when we are not in distress. It's like sound very logical. But again, what is distress? So we are not in balance. We are not at peace. We are not at ease with what we have, who we are, what we think, what we believe, and what we do. So we have to know what our distresses are. It's very essential. What distresses us? Are those our addictions, our attachments, our obsessions, our lack, our greed, our coveting? So we have to make really a serious inventory about what are the things that distresses us. Maybe people, maybe things, maybe certain circumstances that we don't like. And then the idea is that if we call God, this is for 2 reasons. Either we want God to please us with what we want in order not to experience this distress. Or maybe we have to evoke what are those ways, traits, and attributes that are opposite to what distresses us. This is the context, this is the way we understand this psalm, this verse in particular. It's like when we are in distress, we have to evaluate, to make an inventory, as we said before, about what is separating us from God. And that's goodness. Because goodness is our common bond with Him. So we have to, as we said last week and the week before, We have to look our refuge in the goodness of God. But that refuge is, that goodness is in us. That's what we have to look for when we are in distress. Goodness, love, love's ways and attributes. So yes, indeed, we have to ask God for help. We are calling this God, this goodness in us, to relieve our distress. And it will. We know that goodness relieves us from our distresses. May the name of the God of Jacob protect you. It's a very profound statement. The name of the God of Jacob. So what is the name of God that we can't even pronounce? What is it? It's a name, words. But what we're trying to reveal here, based on the Hasidic mystic tradition and other streams of thought in Judaism, is that the name of God is what identifies God. I mean, by identifying, we're not talking about who He is, like a definition. So what are the qualities? So when we see in an ID card, age, name, national origin, civil status, as married, divorced, single, day in which we were born. So that, like, it's also certain characteristics, certain traits, certain information we need in order to identify who we are. Just to put an example about an ID card. Well, in this case, when we're talking about God, we're talking about His ways and attributes. We have to repeat on this because that's exactly what it is. We cannot go literal. We say God's majesty, God's glory, God's hand, God's eyes. We have to understand what that means in our consciousness, or what they represent. So we're talking about the name of the God of Jacob. We're talking about particular traits, qualities, attributes, which are in the Torah. Torah tells us who God is for us. And by is, it's like His ways and attributes, because we cannot define God. The God of the Hebrews, the God of Jacob, the God of Israel. So David is saying, the name of the God of Jacob, that's the one that is protecting you. You need the protection of this particular name, of this particular God, of this particular people. So we're talking about attributes here. As we have said in other commentaries before, and also in our blog many times, we're talking about loving kindness, truth, grace, forgiveness, compassion, mercy. This is the way the Torah is telling us that God is for us. In our human mind, to have an idea of who He is. But again, we're talking about attributes here, not necessarily identifying in detail who this person is. We define it, put it in a box. This is God. No. Now, why the God of Jacob? The Torah tells us that the God of Jacob, Abraham, and Isaac is a God with particular ways, means, and attributes that relate to Israel, to Jacob specifically. Israel. So that we have to relate to the God of Israel. in order to understand what is this name, I mean, what is the quality, what are the traits. So David is telling us, he will answer you as long as you relate to these attributes. So we have to relate to the attributes of the goodness, of these qualities that we just mentioned before, which are inherent to love's ways and attributes, as the material manifestation of God's love, in order to feel protected and relieved from our distress, from what we don't have. I mean, in other words, what is not goodness, that's what makes us in distress. Because when we're in goodness, there is no distress. When we are in love, there is no distress. We know that. Verse 2, may He, God, send you help from the sanctuary and grant you support from Zion. In other words, David makes echo of what he said before in the previous chapters when he's talking about the sanctuary and when he's talking about Zion. Because the sanctuary and Zion are the same thing, which are the place and time of our connection, our permanent connection with God. I'm talking about, in this case, the awareness, the full awareness of our permanent connection with God. This is the sanctuary. So we have to ask for this protection, for this help, from that connection. Meaning we have to be as good as God is, because that's our common bond, connection with Him. That's the sanctuary. That's Zion. From here, from this connection of good, we ask for more goodness. In other words, we don't ask out of this sanctuary. We don't ask out of this connection, because this is what it's about. We have to be connected with goodness in order to ask for goodness. We cannot be in a negative place and ask for goodness. We can't. We have to get out of the negative things. Come back to the positive, then we want more. And it's a choice. Let's be aware that there's a place and time in which we communicate with God. I mean, not to communicate. We are aware, or we are fully aware of our communication bond with God. So in the Hebrew Bible is Zion, which is the temple, the place of the temple of Jerusalem. So the temple, the sanctuary, is the connection. Verse 3, may He, God, remember all your sacrifices, your offerings, and accept your burnt offerings. Probably this is a translation for two different kind of offerings that the Jews brought to the temple. These three festivities of Pesach, Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot. So in this case, we're not going to get into the detail of which kind of offerings, and the fact that they're offerings, what we bring to the temple, the offerings that God wants us to bring to Him. And again, we're talking about the same thing here. What we offer to God is a common bond with Him, things that are common between Him and us. We're talking about goodness here. So the offerings is everything that is good in our consciousness, our good deeds, our good thoughts, our good actions. We bring them in the form of animal sacrifice. They represent the goodness in us. That quality, that's a vital quality represented in an animal, a domestic animal. That we offer to Him. We come to Him and say, this is the goodness we bring it back to you. Because this goodness comes from you. and we bring it back to you. That's the 10%, by the way. This is not a 10% like a quantity of the 100% that I have that God gave me. It's a reminder that everything comes from God, even what we do, what we create. Why? Because we are God's creation. As simple as that. So everything we think, everything we imagine, everything we create, everything we say, everything we do is a result of the spark that God's put on us to be and to do. So when David is saying, may he accept your offerings and your burnt offerings, your elevated offerings, actually, olah, to elevate, is that we're elevating the animal nature of us, represented by a sheep or a goat or a bull, to him. It's like we're elevating our human vitality, this animal force. Up to him, we elevate it to him. And sometimes it's a burnt offering. There's a fire, the divine fire and a physical fire that blend in this offering. And the two fires are connected. God's love and our love. The two fires. And then we transform with this fire, this goodness that we want to elevate to him. It's like all our animal trends, all our physicality, we elevate it into goodness to him. And we transform those through love, to the fire of love. So they will be acceptable to God as long as there's something common with him. He's not going to accept anything that is not part of his ways and attributes. So if he asks us to be good, we cannot go bring weakness to him. Or evil, envy, lust, indifference, arrogance. You have to bring something that is common between God and us, which is goodness. Then he will accept it. It's part of him. Verse 4 and final verse of this short chapter 20 of the book of Psalms. David asks, may he give you the desire of your heart and make all your plans succeed. And again, this is contextual. This is not, okay, I'm going to bring an offering to God. This little ram, this little sheep, this little bull, less than a year, perfect, unblemished. And then I'm going to ask God to give me this and that in this way. It doesn't work that way. We're elevating our ego, our driving force, to something productive, to something good, something positive, something to build on goodness. That's what we do. Then there's nothing else than that. So what we ask is, in our plans, is to make our plans, what we do and we succeed in, and to be with goodness. Because goodness is the cause, and goodness must be the effect and the reward. More goodness. Then we succeed in our plans. And those are the desires of our heart. That to be good, that to be love. So let's try to understand this the sweetest prayer. One of the many sweet prayers of David. In this way. So that we'll be granted more goodness. Because from goodness we came. And from goodness we give. And towards goodness we go. So, with these words, we end this commentary of chapter 20 of the book of Psalms by King David. We wish you, as usual, an abundantly blessed with goodness. Blessing comes, the word blessed is come from goodness. Abundant goodness for you this week and all the weeks of your life. Shabbat Shalom. And until next time.